All right. Hey there, YouTube. Hey, Kettlebell Kings fam. This is Coach Hallie. Just 1 second. I'm just going to grab my yoga block. If you do have a yoga block, we're going to use it today. And we're going to use a few kettlebells, but you don't need a lot of equipment today for the workout. We are doing an ankle mobility focused class. So we're going to be focusing on a lot of dorsiflexion of our ankle, which is the ability to bring our top of our foot and our toes up toward our shin, which is very valuable as an athlete, especially a kettlebell athlete, when you're doing squats, lunges, snatches, swings. That ability, that mobility in your ankles is going to help be able to get your knee to travel past your toes and get more range of motion and depth in your squats and lunges and things like that. But it's also going to enable you to create more power and force production into the ground as you do things like swings and snatches, where you need a lot of that force production going down through the floor. So we're going to be working on some things to help enable a little bit more power and speed through your foot and ankle as well. Cool. So we're going to get started with a little bit of a activation drill for the bottoms of the feet and the toes. So what you're going to do is get on hands and knees, and I'm going to turn sideways so you can see, and you're just going to sit your hips all the way back to your toes or to your heels, and your toes are curled under toward your shins. So we're in toe extension and dorsiflexion of our ankle joint. This might not be super accessible for you to sit all the way back onto your heels. It might feel really intense. If that's the case, bring your hands onto the floor in front of your knees, and it will take a little bit of that weight forward for you, so that way it won't feel super intense. I myself have pretty mobile feet, so I'm going to sit all the way back onto my heels to load this a little bit more. We're starting off with just a passive stretch, using the weight of our body to get a nice intense stretch for the toes and the arches of the feet. You might even feel it all the way up to your heels, and just try to relax in it as much as you can. You know, this is pretty intense for most people, so your body and your brain might be telling you to get up out of it, but see if you can just relax and breathe here. And then what we're going to do is a pail and rail in this position for our toe extension. So first, we're going to activate trying to press the mat backwards as if I'm trying to unpeel my toes from toe extension and point my feet backwards. Okay, so that's the isometric activation that we're trying to do, but we're not actually going to move. Okay, so you're going to think about pushing the mat down and backwards, and I want you to slowly build up your effort and tension until you feel like you're at about 75% of your max effort. So you can bring your hands in a fist, you can brace your abdominal wall. I'm feeling out my quads and glutes even in this position as I'm pressing the mat down and back with my toes and my feet. And I'm feeling a lot of things going on in my ankles and feet here as I hold this engagement. We're going to hold for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to release that tension and then lean forward a little bit to uncurl your toes, point your toes all the way back, and sit back on your heels again if you can. And now we're going to press down and forward with our toes as if we're trying to pull our feet into dorsiflexion again, but the floor is obviously blocking us, so we're not going to actually move. But the tops of my toes, all 10 toenails, are trying to press down and forward as if I'm trying to pull my toes and feet toward my shin. So I'm going to feel a lot of work going on in my shins, my ankles, my calf muscles, my feet. Everything is working here to try to press through the floor and bring my toes toward my shins and just get to that 75% of your max effort again. Hold for 10 more seconds. Just breathing and feeling that out. Feels pretty brutal. Last 4, 3, 2, 1. And then just go ahead and relax. You're going to come out of that position. Awesome. We're going to curl the toes under again. And now we're going to go into a hinge, coming back as we inhale, trying to load back into our hip extension and our knee flexion. And then exhale, we're going to press up out of it, pushing down through our toes and our feet to come all the way back up. Okay, we're gonna do 3 reps with our toes curled under, and then 3 reps with our toes pointed back. So you'll feel that difference in the plantar flexion position like this versus the dorsiflexion position is a little easier, okay? So you can reach your arms straight out in front of you, just protract your scaps forward, brace your abdominal wall, tuck your tailbone down so you're in a posterior pelvic tilt, and then you're gonna lean back, keeping a nice straight line from your knees all the way to the top of your head, leaning back, feeling a stretch in the front of your hips and quads. As you exhale, press down through the toes and the bottoms of arches of your feet as you come up, okay, or the balls of the feet. Inhale, gliding back, finding a nice big stretch. Exhale, coming up. Good, just one more like that with the toes curled under. Inhale, try to get back as far as you can. Exhale, press out of it, okay? So now we're gonna do 3 more, optional to uncurl the toes. This is more challenging, I personally think, because you're not able to brace into the toes as much and the feet are not anchored as well, okay? So here we go, protract those scaps forward, 3 more reps. You're gonna use the tops of your toes and feet to press up out of that, okay? And you definitely feel that difference, right? Without those toes curled under, we're relying more heavily on the strength of our quads, on the strength of our knee joint. Last rep. And rest. Awesome. Okay, next we're gonna do some standing hip cars. So these are just our full range of motion of our hip joint, and we're gonna do it standing just to help stabilize our ankle and foot and challenge that as we go through the hip car. It's optional to do it weighted, but if you have a lightish kettlebell, let's grab one, put it in the rack position. This one's 10 kilograms, so it's not crazy light, but it's a good amount of weight to give us a little bit of feedback for our body. We're gonna load on the same side that is our standing leg. So I'm gonna lift my right knee up, reach my right arm forward in a fist, draw my foot into dorsiflexion, and then I'm gonna sweep out to the side. Keeping my pelvis stable, I'm gonna internally rotate through my hip and drive my heel back as far as I can. Oops, sorry guys, 1 second. My mom was trying to call me. Come on, mother. Don't you know what I'm doing right now? Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Let's start that rep again. So drive the toes up toward your shin, sweep out to the side, internally rotate, driving the heel back, getting into your hip extension, take a breath there, and then we're just gonna reverse it. So now I'm driving back into hip extension, sweeping my leg up, abducting my hip, rotating at the top there, knee pulls up, pull it in front of you, and bring it down. Cool. Now we're just gonna do 1 more rep on the other side. Just rack that bell on the other arm. And I'll just actually face sideways so you can see the hip rotation a little better for this side. So I'm standing on my right leg. Left knee is gonna pull up, toes to the shin as far as I can get. And then I'm gonna drive that leg out to the left, keeping everything stable as I rotate, heel drives back, internally rotating my hip, getting into hip extension, pause there for a breath, just bring the knee forward, and then we're gonna repeat, but going in reverse. So drive back into hip extension, then abduct your hip, lift as high as you can, externally rotate through the hip, and then lift the knee up as high as you can as you bring it in front of you, and then lower it down and rest. Whew, okay, so hopefully everyone's feeling a little warmed up from all that. Even just those few movements with the ankles and feet, really focusing on getting that activation in our ankle joint, that stability as we move through the hips. Awesome. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do some single leg squats on either the floor or a yoga block. Totally optional to use the yoga block. I just like it because it provides you with a little more depth and range of motion that you can get because you're elevated up from the floor, right? So that's gonna feel a little bit better, I think, for a lot of people. So if you do have a yoga block or maybe a little riser that you can stand on, feel free to grab that. But what we're gonna do is actually I'll show you with this leg on the block so you can see. We're gonna have one foot on the yoga block, and I have relatively small feet, so maybe your foot is too big for a yoga block, but maybe you can put two next to each other or just use a little platform if you have it. You can also just do this on the floor with your foot on the ground, okay? But we're gonna go down into a single leg squat position, focusing on this standing leg's knee driving forward. So I'm trying to get as much dorsiflexion in this ankle as I bend, okay? So I'm gonna reach this leg forward, reach my arms forward, and think about traveling this knee toward my toes as much as I can, past my toes, just tapping the heel onto the ground and then pressing up, okay? We're not going into like a full pistol squat position down at the bottom. We're just going into a depth and range of motion that we can drive into with this knee trying to pull forward as the hip is driving back. And we're gonna do 8 reps and then we'll switch sides, okay? So stand tall on your yoga block or your riser. Reach your arms forward as you descend, tapping that heel onto the ground. Think about this knee reaching forward. Exhale, press up out of it. So as I'm coming down, I'm thinking about trying to get my foot to dorsiflex, and then I'm pushing down through the ball of my foot like a gas pedal to come up out of it, okay? So we're just getting as much ankle range of motion as we can. And I'm inhaling as I come down and exhaling as I push away. Okay, 4 more. Just get that nice deep ankle dorsiflexion and then push down like a gas pedal through the foot. Inhale, exhale. Last 2. Reaching those arms forward to help counterbalance. Press up. Last one. Inhale, exhale. Good, just rest for a moment. We're gonna do 8 reps on the other side. Sorry guys, I think my light just got a little darker because it's motion censored, but we'll see if we can get it back on in a second. Okay, here we go. I'm not in my usual setup because we're house sitting for my husband's grandparents right now, so I don't have all my lights with me. All right, so standing on your left leg now, reaching the right foot forward. Here we go. You're gonna reach that left knee as far forward as you can. And then exhale. Think about gas pedaling down to press up out of that little squat. 6 more. Just notice if one side feels drastically different than the other side, right? You might notice that this ankle that you're doing on your second leg maybe feels stronger, or maybe it's less stable, or maybe it has a little easier time getting that knee forward. Just notice those differences. It's just good information for you to know about your own body, where your asymmetries are, and how you can improve that. 2 more reps. Just take your time with it. Try to maintain your balance, feeling out that range of motion in your ankle. That's the priority here, rather than the depth of the squat with your hips. Awesome. Go ahead, come down off of that squat, off that little platform. Just gonna check, I think someone maybe typed in a question at some point. Just wanna make sure. Okay, cool. I'm really honored to be here, guys. Thanks for joining me for the workout. And just let me know if you have questions in the comments. I'm a FRC mobility specialist as well as a Kinstretch instructor. So I do have a lot of mobility work and certifications, which I love to combine with kettlebell training. They're just really, I think, the perfect way to get everything you need from your workouts and to feel the best that you can. Okay, so next we're gonna do a loaded stretch for the ankle to help increase that range of motion even more. And you can just put the kettlebell on top of your knee or your thigh. Don't put it on your knee, put it on your thigh. Okay, and we're gonna just load forward with this weight into as much dorsiflexion as we can get feeling a nice stretch in the back of the ankle, trying to keep the heel grounded as much as you can, and then exhale, pressing back to come out. So I'm trying to pull my shin forward, feel the activation happening on the front of my ankle, and then I exhale and press down like a gas pedal through the foot, getting that plantar flexion activation to come up out of it. Okay, let's do 6 more reps. Just a nice loaded stretch. These drills are awesome to do before you're going to do leg day, before you're going to do squats, whether it's with kettlebells or barbells or dumbbells, whatever you're using at home. The ankle range of motion can have a big effect on the rest of your alignment, right? If your ankles are really immobile or weak, it's going to affect up the chain with the rest of your body. When you're trying to squat, it'll probably affect the position of your pelvis and your rib cage, which will throw everything off. And you'll probably feel your squats more in your back if all of those things aren't aligned and stacked properly, because they're trying to compensate for the lack of range of motion in your ankle joint. I lost count, but let's do one more for us up out of it. Good, and we're just gonna switch sides. Same thing, okay? This back foot, don't worry about tucking the toes under, you can just point them back, and then just getting into as much range of motion on this ankle as you can. You might feel a deep stretch in the front of your thigh too, and then exhale, push down and back to come out of that, okay? We're just using the kettlebell to add extra load, make it a little more challenging. But if you've never done this before, you might not need the kettlebell, right? Even just the weight of your body might be enough for your ankle, especially if you have very limited range of motion, or if you have a history of knee injuries or ankle injuries. It's always good to start off lighter and less intense and really get feedback from your body and notice how things are feeling. If you're pushing into any sort of pain or any sort of sharp sensations, we don't want to push through those ranges of motion. So just know that if you are feeling that kind of stuff, you need to probably assess that joint and, have someone like a physical therapist or a coach that is trained in mobility work like me assess what's going on with that range of motion. Okay, I think that was 8 reps. Let's pause right there. Awesome. Okay, so we got everything warmed up. I feel like we're pretty good for our ankle range of motion. Now it should feel really nice in a squat to load into your ankle joint, because that stuff, that range of motion, that end range is now fired up, and we're able to access it with a little more integrity and muscular activation, rather than just like bouncing in and out of our squat or relying on our hip mobility, right? We want deep range of motion in our knees, and that requires more ankle dorsiflexion, okay? So we're gonna do some squats, just loaded with one kettlebell. Again, feel free to go light. You don't have to go super heavy. Hold on, I think someone's asking. Oh, someone said they can't hear me. Okay, hold on. I think my AirPods are connected. Can you hear me better now? They say they're connected, so hopefully you can hear me, guys. I'm so sorry if you weren't able to hear me. Okay, here we go. So we're gonna do some squats. And this is, oh my gosh. Sorry, guys, I'm having a little bit of a tech issue. Okay. 1 second. Okay. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. All right, my AirPods say they're connected. We're gonna do some squats with the kettlebell loaded. You can hold it however you prefer, goblet hold, cradle grip, whatever's your optimal choice. And then I'm gonna do the cradle grip just so I can have it a little closer to my chest, so I can really focus on my ankles, and that range of motion that we're really focusing on today, again, is in our feet and our ankles. So don't worry about crushing the heaviest squats you've ever done in your life. We're not going for a PR with weight. We're going for a range of motion in our ankle joint, okay? So here we go. We're going to take a nice big breath in, and when we're going to slowly come down, focusing on the knees traveling forward at the bottom of our squat, trying to get that nice deep dorsiflexion of our ankle, and then exhale, we're pressing down through the front half of our feet to come up and stack the body again above our center of gravity. Okay, so we're going to just do 8 reps nice and slow, coming down for 3, 2, 1, and then push up for 3, 2, 1. Okay, just take a nice big breath in, controlling down, 3, 2, 1. Thinking about the ankles, initiating the push, the feet like they're pushing on a gas pedal to accelerate a car. Here we go. Down, 3, 2, 1, and exhale, press out, 3, 2, 1, 4 more. Just take your time with it, nice slow descent. Try to activate the front of your ankle joint as you're coming down, and then push away the floor, 2, 1. Here we go, 3 more. Down, 3, 2, 1. Make sure those heels are staying connected with the ground as you're coming down to the bottom of your squat. Down, 3, 2, 1, and push away, up, 3, 2, 1. Last rep. Down for 3, 2, 1, and push, 3, 2, 1. Cool. Just bring the bell down. Any questions on that? I mean, squats, obviously, they're a fundamental exercise, but with all that ankle mobility work we did before, maybe you were able to feel something different in your squat that you usually don't feel, which is all of these muscles in the front of your ankle, foot, and shin really working to help get into that depth. And then the bottom of your foot and ankle pressing down as if you're trying to plant or flex your foot to get up out of that squat, okay? So now we're gonna do this similar thing, but we're gonna do some split squats, and we're gonna think about that front knee really traveling forward, getting that dorsiflexion range of motion as we come down into our squat, and then pressing down like a gas pedal, again, to come up out of it, okay? So we're gonna load the kettlebell on the opposite side of the front leg. And I want you to try to think about, as you're coming down into your split squat, really sending that knee forward and getting a little T-spine rotation to help load more into this side of your body. And then you can square off at the top as you press back up and stand, okay? So grab your bell. I have my right leg forward, left arm is wrapped, or you can hold goblet, whatever you prefer. And we're gonna load down slowly, bending into both knees, but this front knee is really traveling forward as much as we can get it. And then exhale, you can square off at the top. Let's do just 4 more reps. Just coming down with control. And thinking about that gas pedal push as we come up out of it. That little T-spine rotation helps you just load into that right glute a little bit better. 2 more. Drive that knee forward. Last rep. Good, just bring the ball down. We're just gonna switch sides. Same thing on the other side, right? Focusing on that front knee, traveling forward at the bottom of your squat, your split squat. People also call these pelican squats when you're trying to reach that front knee forward. Usually that variation has more of a straight back leg. So we're kind of combining that forward motion with a traditional split squat descent. So it's a little less pelican because we're not keeping that back knee straight. Okay, so left foot forward, thinking about finding that nice pelvic and T-spine rotation toward that front knee traveling forward past the toes as much as you can get it. 4 more. That gas pedal to press back up out of the position and just making sure you're focusing on your ankle range of motion. That's the theme today. 2 more. Last rep. Good, and then just bring the belt down. Rest for a few moments. Okay, any questions on all that, guys? I know it's a little bit different, but hopefully it makes sense. We're just really focusing on that ankle mobility and making sure it feels good in the ankle joint. And that's really going to help, like I said, create more force production in things like your swings and snatches too, if you're working through that ankle joint more and getting that ability to activate the feet in a conscious way. You're going to feel it up the chain of your body and make sure everything feels stronger. So definitely train your feet, train your ankles. So let's think about this when we swing. So last thing we're going to work on today is just some bilateral stance kettlebell swings. So when we're swinging, obviously it's less of a knee hinge than in a squat like we just did, but there's still a little bit of knee bend. And especially when you're swinging with heavier loads or, depending on what style of kettlebell athlete you are, hard style versus sports style, there could be a little bit more knee bend. And especially depending on the proportion of your femur bone length compared to the length of your torso, everybody's a little different. But for instance, in my swing, my knees are relatively above my ankles. They're a little bit forward of my ankle joint as I swing and come up. Now, in order to create that good force production through the floor, through my feet, I have to think about not only pressing down through my heels, but the ability of the balls of my feet to push down through the floor as well and create that sense of hip extension from the feet, right? So that's really where it's initiating from, is at the bottom of my swing. As I push down, my feet are really grounding into the floor. It's as if I'm trying to do a vertical jump, right? As I'm loading and jumping up to get that range of motion and that propulsion away from the ground. That's basically what we're doing with a kettlebell swing, right? It's about that jumping motion, and that initiates from the feet. So as we propel ourselves with the kettlebell and swing with it, we can try to think about that initiation at the bottom of our feet. And every time I'm pushing down into the floor, I'm thinking about that plantar flexion position, trying to imagine as if my balls of my feet could push away the ground and rise me up a little further out of the ground. So let's do 10 swings thinking about that and seeing if you can feel a little bit more of your hamstring contraction, that connection of the feet pushing down almost like it's trying to pull you forward out of your alignment, but you're going to solidify and brace with your abdominal wall, and how that can affect your posterior engagement with your hamstrings and glutes. All right, let's do it. Here we go. Let's just do 10 easy breezy weight. Don't worry about going heavy. Just 10 swings, thinking about those feet and ankles. Here we go. Take a nice big breath in and hike. And know that your heels are going to stay grounded, but you're really pushing down through the center and ball of your foot. One more. And lower the belt. Cool. So that's just something to think about when you swing, that sense of ankle stability and activation into the floor. Just another little layer to add to your kettlebell swings, especially if you've been swinging for a while. You might want to think about adding in different levels of engagement, different ways to connect deeper into your activations and your exercises to make them more challenging, even if you're not a beginner anymore. Cool, guys. Let me know if you had any questions at all about anything that we did. Sorry if my sound was a little hit and miss throughout. I thought my AirPods were connected from the beginning, and maybe that wasn't the case. Cool. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll be back again next month with another mobility-focused kettlebell class going live with Kettlebell Kings. So yeah, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate you guys being here, and have a great rest of your day. Bye. Thanks, YouTube. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a good one.